Welcome to Homestead Reptile. And today I'm going to talk to you guys about how to help your geckos beat the heat. Summer is here, and in some places where I'm at, we're going to have a heat wave in the 90s for a few days. And it's just starting to heat up. In another place, you're going to get higher than the 90s. It's going to get hot. And if you know anything about New Caledonian geckos, they do not appreciate it when it gets hot. So if you have central air, you don't need this information. But if you're in the group of people that do not have it, you're going to want some of these tips. So one tip, if you keep your geckos in a room that has a window, get a wall fan. Get a fan that you can put into the window to help circulate air in or pull it out of your room. Get some fans going. Another tip, turn your lights off. So if you have plant lights do add some heat. So LEDs don't add a whole lot of heat to an enclosure, but they do add heat. So that heat adds up. Turn your lights off. Spray your enclosures down. Keep your enclosures with a decent amount of moisture when it gets hot, because the moisture will evaporate, and there's one thing geckos cannot stand. It's hot and dry. Keep your humidity. Give it a good humidity bump. Also, depending where you're at, give your geckos a water bowl. Giving them a water bowl can be a lifesaver. They can go down and drink whenever they want, because it could be really hot. You're not able to keep up with the humidity. That's a really, really rare case. That would be a scorching day. So there's that. I have another tip that has actually worked when we had this major heat flash. It was like 99. It was super hot. So I have a lot of other animals that I have to make sure that don't get too hot. So what I decided to do, and it really worked really well, and this is when I had like 2 crested geckos. I don't have a lot more geckos than I had in the past. I took a frozen bottle. I put it on top of their enclosure, and over time it was able to cool down certain sections. And the gecko was hanging out in that cooler section. So there's a tip: if you don't have a whole lot of geckos, you can take a frozen water bottle and put it on top of their enclosure, and it will drop that temperature down. And make sure to turn those lights off. So get a fan in there. Give them a water bowl. Keep the humidity up. Turn your lights off. And if it's super, super hot, add a frozen ice bottle to the top of the enclosure. Not inside the enclosure, the top of the enclosure. And another tip, that's if you don't have a ton of geckos and you have access to a basement, taking them down to the basement. The basement is going to be much cooler than it is going to be in the rest of your house. That's if it's like so ridiculously hot that you're going down to the basement too. So here's some tips to help you beat the summer heat. You don't normally have to really panic about this. Just if you're cool, they're going to be cool. And just watch out for heat stress. That is a super important thing with your crested geckos. And on those super, super hot days, absolutely do not bring your gecko outside. On hot days, don't take photos of your geckos. Don't drag them outside. Keep them cool. Keep them comfortable. They do not appreciate the heat. And if you have other reptiles in your gecko room that have heat sources, you might want to think about either moving them away from those heat sources or turning the other reptile heat sources off temporarily. So I keep 3 species in my reptile area. So I have majority of them are crested geckos. I have mourning geckos. They don't count. They're pretty much like a New Caledonian gecko. Their care is so similar to crested geckos. They don't want that heat either. And I keep garter snakes. So because I keep a North American colubrid that also doesn't appreciate the heat bumping up that high, I can turn their basking bulbs off for a short period of time because they don't like it when it gets that hot. So it helps cool my room down in general. So those are the tips. I hope this helps, and really try to be careful when it gets really, really hot like that. Like and subscribe.